Hello, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to wait a moment to allow everyone to join the session and then we'll begin. I think we can start. Good afternoon. Welcome to our 11th Lunch and Learn presented by the Charlottesville Police Foundation and the Charlottesville Police Department. My name is Gail Milligan. I'm the Executive Director of the Foundation. Now is such an important time for us as members of the community to understand more about policing and the law. And that makes us excited to be presenting this series and very happy that you're joining us today. We so greatly appreciate the partnership with CPD and the time and effort all of the presenters have invested in bringing this information to us. We also appreciate the support from the Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy and from our hosts, Diane and Katie. The Lunch and Learn series is an outcome of our engagement in the community and is part of our core mission to inform and connect. In each session, members of the CPD and associated agencies will offer unique insight to the work the department does and answer questions you have about that work. Before we begin, I want to share a brief overview of our work at CPF. Simply stated, the Charlottesville Police Foundation serves the community by serving the police. We seek to improve the quality of life in Charlottesville by offering a community partner for our police department. The foundation promotes excellence in police services by investing in programs that enhance the department and yet are beyond the reasonable reach of the city's budget. We reward excellence. We strengthen the connections between the department and the public through outreach programs and community events. Some of the ways we serve include housing grants to officers so they can live locally, an awards dinner and Officer of the Month program, advanced training, grants for specific needs such as canine, technology, and community programs like this Lunch and Learn series, outreach events like Cops for Kids Day, and the Charlottesville Night Out, which celebrates police and community. To clarify our role, while we collaborate with the Charlottesville Police Department, we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit. The extent of our advocacy role for the CPD is to improve the quality of policing as a community service. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter. Sonny Saxton is an emergency number professional with over 25 years of experience in multiple states and is the executive director of the Charlottesville-UVA-Albemarle County Emergency Communications Center. Sonny also currently serves as the vice president of the Virginia Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, and Regional Advisory Council for Virginia 911 Services Board. Please note you can add questions to the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen, but we'll hold all questions until the end of the presentation. Sonny, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for that great introduction, Gail. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, thanks. So I'll also mention that I'm new to Virginia, so I've only been here about 2 years. I am so pleased that Charlottesville and the area welcomed me. My wife and I just are really enjoying living in the community and also the work, because we've got a lot of work to do. And we're really enjoying that challenge and being able to find meaningful ways to give back to the community. So thank you for that. But since I've been here in Virginia, I've really just kind of hit the ground running. I'm also chair of the legislative committee for the state in regards to 911 and our association. So I appreciate that opportunity. But more importantly, here to talk about the ECC and the team members. So thank you for that opportunity. I want to talk today just for a minute about, for the next probably 20 or probably 30 minutes here, about how do you ensure community access to emergency services. I did want to mention at the outset, though, that I do have at least one call that I'm going to play that is a video, but it is of a sensitive nature in the sense that you may want to consider if you're viewing this around others about perhaps even muting it or et cetera, if you don't want to listen to that. And I'll give you the warning when that comes up. But anyways, so I want to talk to you a little bit today about what we do. So the Emergency Communication Center really has four primary missions. The first is the 911 Center. We're going to talk more about that. But also our regional emergency management coordination. And so some in the community may not realize that that's a role that is coordinated from the ECC. We, for instance, we work with partners to mitigate, prepare, and response and recovery. And so mitigation for us really means how do you prevent or reduce the damaging effects of an impact to the community. So it could be one of the snow events. It could be what's happened in the last year and a half with COVID, right? So anything that might impact, we want to try to prevent or reduce damage. Preparedness is another activity that we're very strong with. And really that's about increasing the community's response capability. So oftentimes in Charlottesville and Albemarle and UVA, we talk about capacity. So we have really good ideas. We've got really good thinkers, but being able to have the capacity to provide services often becomes a limiting factor. And especially so when we talk about our law enforcement community and what we can do. So anyways, so we want to be able to bolster that capacity and help the community prepare to respond. So another thing we do then, of course, is the response. So that's the action, right? So when we, how we act after an impact to the community. And then, of course, there's a recovery component to that. So a large part of that is the Emergency Operations Center, or the EOC. We were introduced to that. Most of the community was introduced to that probably in the last year when they started to see that name pop up, especially at the beginning of the COVID emergency. You would see things tagged with EOC and what that is. So that's a collaboration. It's a physical, or as we learned in COVID, became a virtual space that our community partners, not just those that are within the ECC footprint, but also all community partners, commercial, business, community volunteers, community organizations, charitables, et cetera. And so that's where we come together to respond as a community to something that's happened, something that's impacted us. So that Emergency Operations Center, for instance, in 2020, we had 12 incidents or 12 events that we activated for. And then in 21, so far, we've had 6 events. Now, that's not to say, of course, then we had the COVID emergency. We had, in fact, we had a almost full-time, almost 24/7 EOC active, physically active for about 4 months from March to June. So we had many partners in that space. 8, 10, 12 hours a day on most days. And so anyways, so that is an experience of its own that hopefully we'll be able to talk about in the future. I also want to mention kind of our third mission, and that's the Regional Public Safety Software Systems. And so that is essentially the technology or the data that's used, not just within the Emergency Communication Center, but also with our officers, our firefighters, our EMS personnel. They're using that technology every day. Well, that's housed from a regional perspective, as you would expect, and that really optimizes and allows us to lower the total cost of ownership for those systems. But that's one of the roles that the ECC takes on. And I also mentioned that along with law enforcement, there's also a jail management system component to that. So we also assist the regional jail as well. And then the fourth mission, if you will, would be the Regional Public Safety Radio System. So that's how we talk to each other. That's used for tactical and daily operations. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. But one thing that you'll see key there is regional, regional, regional. So everything that we do as it should be in an emergency is to come together and to pool resources and do those together. And really that helps us lower the total cost for those types of services in the community. So who are we, or who we are? We're a consolidated center. And what that means is that all law, fire, and EMS agencies that have an emergency response footprint within Charlottesville, UVA, and Albemarle County are resourced through the Emergency Communications Center. We were established in 1984, and that was done. Our governance is through the ECC Management Board, and that management board is chiefly Charlottesville, UVA, and Albemarle County representatives, and they provide guidance, fiscal oversight. We also work closely with the county as a fiscal partner. And that's just, sometimes I get asked that, what's the governance of the ECC? But more importantly, what a consolidated center does is it gives you one call. Now, of course, we know that's 911, but there's more than that, right? There's non-emergency phone numbers, there's texting, there's other things that we're going to talk about in a minute. And then I'm super proud to be able to work with a large number of folks. We have 54 full-time employees that are authorized. Right now we're at 53 the last time I looked. And we still got a few vacancies as we work through people with training. But overall, we're very, very fortunate to have a great group of individuals. The specialized skill sets that we have in the center mean that we have a longer training time. So I would say that anybody can be a communications officer. So I would say we're always recruiting. So if it's something that you're interested in, please get in touch. I'll make sure you have my contact information when at the close of this webinar today. But I would encourage you to come on board. We recruit not just people that are new to the profession, but also people that have a background in fire, EMS, or law. We also recruit people who have a background in the 911 profession. And so we're relatively new. We've only been around 30 or 40 years, and that's a relatively new profession. And as such, we're just now learning as a profession how people can move around as they relocate and be able to use their skills. And so part of our recruitment tactic is to reach out to those individuals. So if that happens to be you and you happen to be watching or you have an interest, certainly reach out. But then we have some amazing support personnel that also are in our IT division, our administrative, and our custodial division that really do an amazing job. And then you can see in the background of this slide here, this picture, that was a recent recruit class. And I'm super proud of them. Our training time typically takes about 6 to 9 months because of that specialization that we have. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. So a lot of people have never seen inside of a 911 center. What does it look like, right? So here's a couple of pictures inside the center. And you can see here, this is our primary. You can see they're decorating for Christmas here. And so that was last year. That was really fun. And then we also have a backup center. So our primary center has 13 seats that are available, and our backup center has 6 seats. And the backup center is what we could call a hot backup or an online backup center. And it allows us to be able to move over if something was happening to the main one. However, I would mention that we did use it during COVID. So in the early times of COVID for many months there, we, in order to keep people physically distanced and safe before we had those barriers that you see in the photograph there, we separated and we did cohorts. So we had a group of employees that went to the backup center and worked. We had a group of employees that stayed at the primary center. And our folks, our public safety communications officers just did an amazing job transitioning through that. And so I also want to mention just briefly some of our accreditations. And so accreditations are important because really they're external validations and a review of best practices. They also, for us as an organization, to become a learning tool, right? So it's not just about measuring yourself against a standard or measuring yourself against others. Hopefully we're learning through the process. And so we are accredited by the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, or CALEA. Very proud to be so. We've been so since 2006, and that involves like an annual review. And then every couple of years, they actually come on site. And so we're very pleased to be involved in that program, and it's been a great one. Also, APCO Project 33 is a training program initiative, and the list goes on. And so what does that mean? Again, it just means that we're trying to serve the community the best we know how, and very proud of that. Take a turn here and talk just a minute about our public safety radio system. So that radio system, this is how we communicate with each other. Oftentimes I'll have people say, why don't you use cell phones? There's more cell towers than there are radio towers, like you see an example of there. And yes, that's true, but the public safety radio system really is a mission critical service. So it's a service that has backups to the backups to the backups, if you will, right? And so we want to be very careful about ensuring that our public safety professionals have a way to communicate when they're in the field. And we do that by hosting that radio system. So there's over 4,000 what we call subscriber radios, or 4,000 radios that they communicate with each other across the region. And our current system has 4 radio sites, so 4 main towers. We are right in the middle of a renewal process. It's an $18 million reinvestment project. It's been going on for a few years. I'm excited to report that we just completed what we call coverage testing, which means that all the towers are built, the equipment is installed, it's turned on. There are now a total of 8 sites. So we've constructed towers, as you see an example there in front of you. And when we completed the coverage testing, we drove all of the roads, the public roads within the county, and we make sure that it hits a high mark. It's over 90% coverage. And so very pleased to be able to report that. And we expect the system to come online early next year. And so, and I'm very pleased to have technicians working within my group that have just done an amazing job on this project. So we also, in addition, we do support for our radio and digital sites for the region. And so this is an example here, a quick pic of us at a factory training where we were testing equipment. But our IT team maintains these large regional software systems, which means that they have to have help desk support, but really it's beyond just that. They do implementations and trainings and preventative maintenance, and then the upgrades, the uplifts, and et cetera. And so we've just got a really good group of folks. And it's not just at the ECC. Each one of our partners, as you see here, you might recognize a few faces. We have people from Charlottesville Police Department that are on our team. We have people from Charlottesville Fire and the regional and Albemarle County. And so anyways, we're really pleased to have that multiple support and the multiple stakeholders there. So talk just a minute about accessing 911. So most people know you can grab a cell phone is what the majority would do, and you can place a 911 call. We've had text available for several years. Our motto is call if you can, but text if you can't. We'll talk a little bit more about the information that we ask during a call here in a minute, but also we have social media accounts. In fact, we have a big statement on it that says the site is not monitored for the reporting of emergencies. And that's during regular times, but during a disaster time, certainly we would use whatever means of communication, such as Facebook and Twitter and et cetera, to be able to monitor for emergencies during disasters. And then, so if we take a look at phone calls, it's a busy slide. We watch a lot of metrics at the ECC, and this is just a good example of some of the metrics that we look at. So that equates to about 180,000 calls per year. I get people that always ask me that, so just under 200,000. That equates to about 160,000 calls for service, and we'll talk about calls for service later. But as far as accessing 911, one thing that's very important measure for the community to watch is making sure that someone's available to answer that phone. So we've all placed a phone call before, and it rings, and as every time it rings, you wonder, is the business going to pick up? Well, if it's 911, of course, you don't want to be placed on hold. You don't want to get a message. You want to have somebody answered as quick as possible. And according to the national standards, you should do so. You should be able to answer all calls within 15 seconds, which is a couple of rings, 90% of the time. And of course, we hit that mark and a little bit higher. But that's a struggle. And we'll talk about that struggle in a little bit when we talk about staffing. But and you'll see the kind of up and down on the graph here. That's not a performance, that's the number of calls we're receiving. And so COVID changed for a time how the community moves around and does their day-to-day activity, right? And so during the pandemic, and even today, we see a flattening amount of calls that come into 911, although you can see there towards the end of that graph, we're almost back to normal. Whatever the new normal is, right? So then I often am asked, well, how do they call? It wasn't so long ago that everybody had a home phone, not too many of those now. That's what we call wireline. Usually that's business customers, et cetera. We have something that we call VoIP, which is voice over internet protocol, which means essentially probably like a cable modem or if calling from a laptop or et cetera. There's different ways that VoIP calls are placed, but the majority of ways that people access 911 is by wireless, and that's just a represented graph of our last month of service. So talk for a minute about when to call 911. So 911 hangups are a problem. So we have people, we understand it happens. It's happened to all of us. You have your phone in your pocket, you accidentally dial it, or child grabs your phone and hits the emergency button, and it happens. We've had about 3,000 is our average per year, so about 3,000 911 hangups. The reason why it's a concern is because what do we do if somebody calls us? We don't know if it's an emergency and somebody just got disconnected, so we call you back. So then we have to, then that takes time, right? So to pick up the phone, try to, get the phone number, try to reach out and make contact to whoever it is that called us. Sometimes we'll try a couple of times depending on what's happening or what we think might be happening at the scene. And then we'll call a sergeant from the police department may have to go check the house or check the residence or try to find out who's calling 911, right? So anyways, 911 hangups are something that I talk to the community about a lot. And the number one thing I'd say to do, stay on the line. Don't just hang up, stay on the line, talk to us, tell us that everything's okay, tell us it was a mistake. That way we don't have to send somebody out. There's also times when you didn't call but should. And I often get asked about that. We had campaigns a number of years ago that would encourage community members, if they see something, say something, or do you know the signs of suspicious activity? And there's really good resources out there, community resources that can help neighborhoods understand when is the right time to call, because certainly we don't want to wait until the situation's escalated. We want to try to intervene as early as possible and de-escalate the situation. We also have non-emergency numbers. So we have people that call us on a non-emergency number because they say, I don't know if I should call 911, so I've called this number. And we appreciate that. We handle those as a lower priority, but we get to that person just as quick as possible. And then we have web-based reporting available as well. I'm going to play for you next just a fun little video that everybody's got TikToks now, something we saw online. It's a great example. It's actually a live call from what I understand example. I believe I want to say it's Mesa, Arizona is where it's from, but the call taker will say where they're from at the beginning. And it's just an example of a 911 hang up, and it has a really cool ending at the end if you catch it, but you got to watch fast. So I will start that now.
Hello, 911.
Hi, is this McDonald's?
McDonald's? No, this is the Mesa Police Department. Do you have an emergency?
Can I get one with that meal?
A Happy Meal?
Look.
Hello, are you there? Hello?
Who is this?
Hey, this is Anthony.
No.
Hello?
Hi, who are you? McDonald's.
Hello?
What? Hi.
Is your mom or dad there?
Yeah, my mom and dad are here. 1 second, Dad.
Hello. Hey, this is Anthony with the Mesa Police Department. We received several calls from this location. We just wanted to confirm that there was no emergency.
No, sorry, I don't know. The kids must have had the phone.
He was asking me if I was McDonald's and if he can get a Happy Meal.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
So we'll probably still have an officer head out there for a welfare check. Who knows? Maybe he'll stop by McDonald's. I don't know.
Okay, so hopefully you're able to hear that okay. And if you weren't able to see the video, you're just listening, I would tell you that at the end, you may not have caught it, but there was a great picture of the boy who had called 911 by accident, thinking it was McDonald's. They did send an officer out, from what I understand. They had a great picture of the officer delivering the Happy Meal to the family there. And what a fun story. But that's a great example how 911 hangups just happen. And remember, the number one lesson there is stay on the line if it happens and let us know you're okay. Let us know there's not an emergency. So let's talk for just a second about the first, what I call the first responder. So our telecommunicators are there on the phone, sometimes before anybody else, and we're talking to somebody, we're hearing it, the moments are very raw, and the professional skill set that's needed. I can't say enough about the communications officers. They just do an amazing job. They have de-escalation training, they have CIT training, which stands for Crisis Intervention Team training, and medical training for how to breathe for somebody, or how would you provide instructions to breathe for somebody? How would you do compressions if you need to do CPR? How do you control bleeding? How do you birth a baby? We have this award that we give out, which is a stork pin for those that have been on the phone when a baby's been delivered. And so that is such a fun opportunity to be involved in. I would tell you though, there are there's a recent movie that was out, The Guilty I heard about. Emergency Call is a new one that tries to showcase what it's like to be a communications officer in one of these 911 centers. But the number I say is that it's not always exciting, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of in-between calls. There's a lot of calls where people probably didn't need to call 911. They didn't mean to call 911. But certainly there's also tragedy, right? So we're right there in the moment of tragedy. One of the things that I want to play for you is an example of what it's like to be the first responder. Again, I would just mention this is the one I talked about in the beginning. There is a little bit of viewer discretion here. It does include some audio excerpts of an actual 911 regarding a call that was regarding an assault. So the video is about 4 minutes, but if you needed to, you might want to shield the screen. But we'll take a listen here.
What's the emergency?
One of my most memorable calls is a time that I had been working late. I was really tired. It was 2 or 2:30 in the morning.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
And I got a call from a lady who called 911, and I said, well, where's your emergency? And she kind of gave me a vague location.
Do you know what mile marker you're at?
I'm not sure.
I asked her what the emergency was, and she said, well, I don't know.
What's going on?
I'm not sure.
Why are you calling 911?
Pardon me?
Why are you calling 911? What's the emergency?
Okay, never mind.
And I was a little bit irritated, but I tried to keep my calm, and I said, yes, you have to tell me, because I thought, here I am working this overtime, and I'm frustrated, and here now I've got somebody on the phone, and they won't tell me what's going on.
You don't know why you called 911?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then why did you call?
Okay. Do I have to say right now?
Yes.
Okay, then never mind.
And that's when it clicked in my brain that maybe there's a reason why she can't tell me.
Are you able to talk, or is there someone?
No.
Okay. Are you in danger?
Yes.
Okay. Has someone kidnapped you?
Okay. I don't know.
It turned out that she was on a date with someone, and they had given her something to drink, and she woke up, and the suspect was sexually assaulting her. And now they were in a vehicle driving along the road. She finally convinced him to let her use the phone, and she called 911.
Does this person know you've called 911?
No.
Okay. Okay, then just pretend like you're talking to your friend, and I'll see if I can't get somebody to help you.
At the time, I could tell that she had called 911 4 times, and all 4 times they had disconnected because she wouldn't tell them what was going on. I was a little bit humbled at that point that I finally got her on the line and was willing to ask her more questions.
Are you in a truck?
Yes.
Okay.
She was in a black pickup truck, extended cab. The suspect had some type of weapon. She couldn't really tell me what. And every so often he would get a little bit suspicious and say, "Who are you talking to?" And she's like, "It's my sister." So I had to kind of change up. It was really a challenging call. I was on the phone with her for a good 20 minutes.
It's my sister. Just want to know.
And why can't you talk? Are you afraid he's going to hurt you?
Yes.
Okay. Has he already hurt you tonight?
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting help your way. Just stay on the phone, okay?
Okay.
We finally get an officer behind her, and as he pulls up behind, he's waiting for a backup, but the car blacks out his lights and went to turn up into this rural area where there was, the officer said, "Hey, I'm going to have to pull him over or I'm going to lose him."
Did he turn the lights off to the car?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he turned off the lights.
Okay, the officer can see you still, so don't worry, okay?
Okay.
So he pulls the car over, and you can immediately hear the officer in the background yelling, "Get out of the car, get out of the car." And she just starts bawling.
Hey, I'm getting out. Get on your face now. Okay, I'm getting out. Do you understand me? Ma'am, are you okay? Do not move. Put your hands behind your back now.
The officer gets the suspect in custody, and she just kept saying, "Thank you so much, thank you so much."
Are you there? Are you okay? The officer's got him in custody?
It kind of taught me a lesson that day. Every minute that we are working in this job is important. Every call is important. This call specifically, I feel like I made a huge difference in her life. Had I not listened to her, that might have been her last chance to call 911 that night. And you just never know when that one person, that life-changing call is going to come in for someone.
So that's a great example of the life impacting that happens within an emergency communication center within the 911 function. Our communications officers are professionals, and also I thank you to, of course, to Phoenix. I believe it's Phoenix PD or Phoenix Fire for putting that out to the public to allow us to view it. And every call is important. That's the one thing that I take away from that video after hearing it, is every call is important, right? I also want to talk a little bit about information gathering. So oftentimes in the community, when I tell people what I do, I'll hear something to the effect of, "Well, why do you ask so many questions? Why don't you just send help?" And of course, we do send help, but we've got to know, where do we send it? We also, just in case we get disconnected, we want to make sure we've got your phone number so we can call you right back if needed. And even though we're asking questions, someone else is sending help, or we're sending help. You know, the communications officer you're talking to is sending help. So, but the information gathering is an important part of a communications officer role because they want to understand what the scene, what we call the scene of the emergency is like before the officers, fire, et cetera, get on scene. But then more importantly, we can help people. One of the things that we have found is that cell phones are great. 80% of the people are calling us on them. but they don't always give us an accurate location. In fact, I think it's a myth that people assume because I'm on a cell phone, you'll know exactly where I am. And, oftentimes I'll hear people say, well, I can order a pizza and I can know where I'm at. I see my driver coming to me. Why can't I see 911 coming to us? And our 911 systems aren't set for that yet. But we are striving for the future. There's large upgrades that need to happen. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those updates in a minute. But one in particular is a new technology that allows us to have better location from a modern phone. So just a modern smartphone. If things are working correctly on that phone, we can send a text to you and ask you if you want to enable your location, enhanced location information, or even if you want to enable your video and show us something. And that's new technology. In fact, it's launching later this month in our 911 center as a test. So as a trial, we want to see what it's like. But I want to show you a quick video that describes that. It's already being used in a couple of communities around the country. And we're fortunate to be one of the first in Virginia to be able to do that. And so let me just tee up this video real quick. And again, this isn't from our communication center. This is from another communication center well north of Virginia. But it describes what this technology can do and how it can be a game changer in 911.
Police detachment, Chino.
Yes, hi. I was kayaking and I'm in the near Cove Beach, and there's no one around. I can't seem to.
Very nervous. So I actually, my kayak rolled over and got swamped, and I was in the water, and I was very scared, didn't know what to do and where to go.
She didn't know how to tell us where she was. She really wasn't sure of her location. Quick thinking, I saw the Carbine logo up there, thought, oh, let me try this. I'm gonna send you something. You have to enable it yourself, you have to accept it.
He send me a text, just had to click on something to give him permission, and then I did that.
I saw the camera, the kayak was sinking, she had a cut in her leg.
There weren't any boats going by, and they couldn't see me, and I was able to show them with my phone where I was.
She was on a rock. It was some random rock in the ocean.
So I heard that they had gotten a view from a camera. They were using that new software.
He's like, can you give me a better location? Give me a location? I was like, yeah, I have it right here on Carbine. And copy, paste, send right back to them. He sent it over to them. It was a matter of like seconds, and they had exactly where she was.
As soon as we got the lat long, we called back some of those resources because we knew exactly where the person was.
I feel like if we didn't know where she was, they would be searching around for a while.
The dispatcher said he'd stay on the line with me through the whole time.
Okay, that might be them. They should be right there in that area.
Oh, I think I see them.
You think they see you?
They're coming.
Once that boat came and I heard saw the fire police and I saw the fire, oh man, it was a great feeling. I was like, oh, it worked. It actually worked like in record time.
Within a short time of implementing this thing actually helped saving of somebody. I'm thinking, oh my God, this thing really works. I'm really, really excited that we were able to help somebody within just a few hours of turning the switch on.
You know, you had to see it to believe it. This is really something that is groundbreaking.
We're not putting it in to make me feel better, but nonetheless, I absolutely was very pleased with that success.
You know, you feel so grateful that there's people out there that are helping you, and I'm so grateful for him and everybody who rescued me.
So thanks for taking a minute and watching that. I think that's a good example too of not just how location information is important and how advancing technology is something that we continue to do, but also that having a survivor come into the emergency communication center is really a comforting thing. Talk just for a second about when we contact you. So we have something we call reverse 911, which essentially is sending out messages and phone calls. We use phone numbers that we have in the database. It is that type of service, code red we call it, is something that you need to enable. So if you would do that, or if you want that, we would ask that you would send a text to Be Alert to 99411. Again, it's Be Alert to 99411. You'll see that oftentimes we do a lot of PSAs and advertisements in the community. You'll probably see our yard signs that are out and around. And we have a pretty good following there. And what we use that for is anytime there's an emergency, if significant weather threat, flood warning, et cetera, we'll push out information through that portal to alert you about local hazards and any steps that you should take or that you may want to take in order to protect yourself or your family. There is also a similar program through UVA, so UVA alerts. And in that case, you would text UVA to 226-787. And if anybody wants more information about that, just feel free to contact me later. So I mentioned PSH, which is short for Public Service Announcements, but a big portion of our job is the prevention side. You know, what can we do to help prepare our community and our families and individuals in being able to respond to these things that just happen, right? You know, things that happen in the community. And we do that through a variety of different ways. One of them, we talk about free emergency preparedness training. We have Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT volunteers. We have almost 500 of them just in the Charlottesville-Albemarle UVA region alone. And very proud to see that type of involvement from the community. But those CERT volunteers, we provide the training, and they then find a way to plug in on emergency response. They've been helping a lot with COVID, tireless hours volunteering. I can just tell you, it would be an interesting statistic to count up all the volunteer hours that have been given in the last year and a half for the pandemic and the other emergencies. One thing that I'll also mention is you might hear from us during a police week or fire week. Of course, we know the foundation, Charlottesville Foundation, is very active and trying to help the community know what an amazing job and what a difficult and challenging job our law enforcement professionals have. But also on the 911 side, they really are the heroes under the headset. So I'd say, just for a minute, that I'd say let's get real, right? So let's think about what the communications officer role is. They are listening to things that are the worst moment sometimes of people's lives. They are listening to domestic disputes, alcohol overconsumption, car accidents, slips and falls. And so that is an intense amount of, I don't know if you want to call it negativity or just negative things that are happening. Now, of course, it takes a special person, because our communications officers find a way to lift themselves up in service of others. And so there's that experience and that feeling and the knowledge of knowing they're serving others. But the part that I say, let's get real, is that it is a hard job. And there are times that they are tired. And our comms officers have been very tired through moments of COVID, because when COVID was happening, we had these large emergencies in the community. Remember that we still have car accidents happening, slip and falls, and et cetera. And so the regular work continues at the same time that they're trying to respond to these emergencies. And so one of the ways that we try to acknowledge that they are the heroes under the headset, they are the ones that you don't often hear, is we have a 911 week. And that's in the spring in April, where we celebrate with them their service to their community. And so if you're looking for a way to get involved, I would encourage you to reach out during that 911 week or before that. It's a really fun time in the community. We have volunteers from businesses, we have donations and things like that. And so that's one time throughout each one of these professions that we get to really acknowledge the service that the police, fire, EMS, and 911 professionals do. And so maybe just kind of end on this. How are we changing? So we have new initiatives underway. I talked about something called ECC, which is Emergency Services IP Network, a little bit of tech jargon there, but essentially we're saying that we're ensuring future access of 911. So Virginia is out front leading the nation on some of their ECC rollouts that they're doing. Charlottesville-Albemarle UVA region is getting ready to connect to that. We're on track to be connected next year. And essentially that's a network of 911 centers. So for instance, something, if we had an overload of 911 calls, where would those calls go? Would they go to a nearby center? We have that large capital improvement project I told you about with the radio system that's ongoing. We hope to have that online next year. And then in the center, we're undertaking a workforce optimization. And, we are a government service, but at the end of the day, it's much like a business, and you want to make sure that you're optimizing. We're very cognizant that tax dollars need to be spent very wisely and carefully. And in doing so, we want to have help look at our team and tell us where's the right places for our resources to be, as well as our a wage review. We find that it's difficult to recruit people to a job. In fact, we're finding that a majority of our communications officers can't afford to live in the Charlottesville-Albemarle region. And so they actually have to live in other communities. And if you think about that for a minute, when I talk about that, how much they give of themselves, how much they bring to the job, to every shift, to every hour, every minute, but yet they can't live where they serve. And so we're looking at wage reviews and just to see what we can do to help them. And then another one I'll mention is space needs assessment. So our building I showed you had some of the pictures of it. We just have them crammed in every nook, every corner of our existing buildings. And so we are right in the middle of a space needs assessment where we're going to have to eventually build a new physical plant to house the 911 and the Emergency Operations Center. And then lastly, I just close on talking about mental health crisis response and reimagining policing. Myself and my team have been very active the last 8 to 10 months in trying to engage in the community, and we're engaging with our law enforcement partners. We're really appreciative of Charlottesville Police Department's engagement with us as we look to say, what does the future look like? And for me specifically, it's what's the 911 role there? Can we, how can we identify a situation before it escalates? When somebody is having a mental health crisis, do they have a phone number that they can call? We're talking a lot in the community about 988, which is a new number that will be active soon. It's active on most systems already, that routes a person to a suicide hotline. But then we need more, right? We need quick access to mental health resources. We need to know that we can send responders to the scene that are well equipped for it, and not necessarily the typical fire, police, or ambulance response, something different, mental health professionals. And so we're working on that in the community, and we're gonna have some tough questions about, what's it look like? Where do we get the resources for it? And of course, the 911 role in that is how can we dispatch the most effective resources? And anyway, so I'll probably just stop there and say that we've got a lot of things on our plate. We've got a lot of things on the horizon. I really appreciate, Gail, you and your team allowing the opportunity to talk about these things that are very germane to our community. And I just look forward to the opportunity to keep talking in the future and keep the dialogue going. So with that, Gail, I'll pause and just see if anybody had any questions.
Well, I have something to say before we take any questions. Of the 11 lunch and learns that we've had, I've never expected to be this emotionally engaged. And it was a remarkable presentation, and the videos really and truly brought everything close to home. So it was a terrific presentation. So thank you. So let's look at questions. Here's a question. Can you really order pizza when you can't safely talk? I have a question for you. I have a question about the software that we saw deployed with the kayaker, but also the radio system. Is that software that we saw demonstrated, is that something that's coming to this area, or is it here already?
Yeah, thank you for that. So let me back up on the question about the pizza. So what I didn't say, and sometimes you'll hear in the community, is that, and it's not a myth, it is true, you could try and communicate with somebody either by text. So call if you can, but if you can't, try to text, because then you can do text discreetly and ask for help. But also a tactic that we've heard some talk about in the community is that you call 911 and you say, I need something, right? I need something other than a police response. So I need a pizza or I need this. Will our communications officer pick up on that you're actually needing services and you just can't say because there's somebody else behind you or next to you that you don't want to hear them to hear you say those words? I can't guarantee that. Right. I can't, it's just because it's so nuanced what somebody would say. I oftentimes see social media campaigns, memes and stuff out there that says, well, if you ask for this type of pizza or this type of sandwich, it means there is no across the board code, but certainly anything you can do to let us know you need help. And again, the number one thing is stay on the line. If you have a 911 call by accident, stay on the line, tell us you're okay. Because if you don't, we're going to begin to get involved and try to send help to you. So, but your second question, regarding the uplift, the technology uplift that's going on. So in the case of the radio system, yes, been working on it for a number of years. It's a large initiative. Like I think I may have mentioned, it was about an $18 million investment. And that is just about ready to deploy. So we're hoping the system's on now, but we hope to begin bringing people onto the system and transitioning them from the old to the new after the first of the year. So we're very excited about that. And that means that our law enforcement officers, we talk a lot about safety. They can navigate the streets, they can go into buildings, they can know that they always have a radio on their chest or on their hip that allow them to talk back to 911 and let us get additional help if they need it. So that's number one. Number two, though, or number three probably is the carbine system. So carbine system, you're the first ones to hear it in the public, Gail. We're releasing this now. They're supposed to be on site next week. So if everything goes okay, I'm knocking on wood here, we will be turning that system on next week. We're not publicizing it. We're just talking about it in community forums like this. Because it's a trial. But essentially, after next week, you could certainly call 911 and perhaps get, we would say, can we send you a text? Now, again, it's only if you don't know where you are. Can we send you a text? And if you say yes, we'll send you the text. It comes out automatically. You click, it's a one button click, and it enables it on the phone. And that company's worked with the different phone providers to have it be a simple process. So then you say, I give you permission to see where I am. And then we see where you are. And so it's just an amazing technology. And then you can even see video as well. And if you can imagine, there's times that you're trying to describe something over the phone in an emergency. If you can see it, pictures 1,000 words, and we can help try to get you the right help that you need. So anyways, yes, those technologies are here. Everything that I talked about today across the board are all things that we're working on at the ECC or we're already have acquired. So.
That's really great news, and that's very impressive. So next question: if someone can only share one piece of information before they get cut off, what is the most important?
Location. It's got to be the location, right? Because we got to know where to send you the help. Tell us where you are, and then it's that's the number one thing that we ask. So yeah, okay. Great question.
Thank you. Another question. What is the current state of radio communication interoperability between local, state, federal authorities? Is ECC able to connect federal to local authorities if were a critical incident in our area?
That is a great question, and it sounds like a very well-informed individual. So I want to talk later. So please email me or reach out. I'd love to spend some more time. But the short answer is yeah. And yes, we are able to. So we call that interoperability, or the ability to talk to others across the region. One of our core assets that we have in Virginia, we're very fortunate to have such a good investment at the state level, and that's the RIOS system. And so it's a system that allows us to talk real time. I call it tactical communications or operable communications, where I can reach out to somebody in a neighboring jurisdiction, ask them to enable, so they essentially turn on the buttons to where if our responders were to go across into another jurisdiction, we can still talk and they can talk to us. So we are very fortunate to have that tool in almost every 911 center. In fact, I think it's once a month we test the system and we turn it on and we check it with all the 911 centers. But even state police, even the fire marshals, et cetera, they all have access to that. And so we're very fortunate to have that. So great question. And our new radio system really takes that to the next level. And so we are very fortunate. So I kind of glossed over that today, but there are many achievements we have with that new P25 radio investment. And we could spend an hour talking about that. So
I will definitely connect you so that you can have further conversations. It's also good to know that such serious thought and interaction is occurring with the reimagining policing discussions, especially in regard to mental health. And so anyway, there are no more, oh, there is one more question. That is not true. Is it true that you can use an old cell phone with no SIM card to call 911?
I don't know the answer to that. That is a great question. I don't know that that's always true because that's a true or false. So I would say I'm not sure. But some phones may be able to function that way. But the FCC governs some of that. But then again, it depends on what kind of phone you got, if it's a burner phone or where you got it, that kind of thing. So
okay, great. And when I was thinking about before the number of people that you can call back and the number of people that you are unable to call back should you lose them, what percentage of people should you lose them, of types of calls can you not reconnect with if you happen to lose them?
So really it has to do with the where they are. So if, for instance, they're out, on Ragged Mountain Trails or something, and they had spotty service and they were able to place a call and then we can't reach them back, that's one way. That's also where we think that technology like Carbine might be helpful. And again, it's a trial, so we want to, it's new to our community, it's new to Virginia. And so we want to test it. But if we can use technology, we might be able to increase that percentage of people that get that first call placed to us and we're not able to reach them back. Also, there are times where people are like the caller that we saw, the video, where they're able to place a quick phone call, they ask for help, and then they need to come off. And they may even say, I can't talk to you, or I can't say, and then we know. Or sometimes they'll try a code thing like the pizza thing or whatever, but we just have to try to communicate. But you're right, I don't have a percentage of that, okay. But I do know that we have about 3,000 of our 180 some thousand calls that are 911 hangups that, we send help and nobody needs us. So.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, I see no more questions. So, and I know that you're at a conference, so we will let you go. Sonny, I can't thank you enough. This was a remarkable presentation, so informative, and we just really appreciate your time. The next Lunch and Learn topic will be use of force, which of course is one of the most talked about topics in law enforcement these days. It will be Wednesday, November 17th at noon, and hope that you can join us there. In the meantime, be well, and thanks for coming. Take care.
Thank you, Gail.
Bye.